Hello, this is Lauren of Lauren Learns Korean. This is the first video on this channel. I'm going to break this up preferably into 3 parts. I wanted to share with you the reason why I decided to finally take the plunge and create this channel. So I'm going to start off with how I came to really come to really love and be really deeply immersed into Korean culture. So I'm going to start way back at the beginning. And for me, it started when I was probably in middle school. And it wasn't until fairly recently, like within a year or so, that I realized that Korean culture has been weaved intermittently throughout my life since then. And it started back at the church that I grew up in back in the 90s. So I'm aging myself. And there was an interracial couple at the church I grew up in. And it was a white man and a Korean woman. And I believe that they met during the Korean War because they were older at that time, from what I can remember. The Clarks, that was their name, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. And I remember one Sunday after church, I think my mom was talking to the lady, and I remember I was standing there for some reason with my mom, and as she was talking to this lady. And I remember I looked down and I saw in the seat next to her, it was her Bible. And it was a Korean Bible because I could see the writing on the front. And I remember I kind of just looked at it for a second. Didn't really think much of it because at this point I was probably like 12 or 13 years old maybe. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about, oh, this is really interesting and I really want to dig deep into this. I was just like, I don't know what that says, but it looks cool, and just kind of, dismissed it. And so that was that. And I wonder if my sister remembers this, but not too long after that, one Sunday after our church was over, we were invited to a Korean church. And we went to this Korean church, and I remember sitting there during the whole duration of their service and not understanding a word they were saying. I was very confused because I was like, what are we doing here? Because I don't recall like any notification of this. I just remember one Sunday we went over to this church and stayed for their service. And I remember during the sermon, that was completely in Korean, there were Bibles, in the seats or in the pews. And I remember I picked up a Bible and I was looking at it, and I just kind of opened it up. And it was like all Korean. And I was just like, I don't know. So I just kind of closed it and put it back and just kind of sat there, as they say, here where I live, just sitting there looking, basically, because I didn't know what was going on. And so that was that. And we never went back to that church. So I don't know what that was about, other than I think we were invited from the Korean lady that went to our church. I think she wanted to bring us there so that we could connect with them and meet them, but it was just that one time. So that was it. And so this was around the time that I really started getting into anime. So really my interest in Asian culture started with Japanese. And so I really got into anime, and the anime that really, tipped me off for that was Sailor Moon, because back then Sailor Moon was really popular. So this was like 97, 98, something like that. And so me and my cousins and my sister were really into Sailor Moon, but I went above and beyond, and I started venturing out and watching other anime. And so for those who remember this, on the Sci-Fi Channel back in the day, they would play anime movies on Saturday mornings. And so that's when I got to see like Demon City Shinjuku and Akira and stuff like that. Akira blew my mind, blew my 12-year-old mind. Changed my life in a way, If you haven't seen Akira, that's mandatory if you're an anime person. But anyway, so I was into anime and Japanese culture and all kinds of stuff like that, listening to anime soundtracks and stuff all the way from middle school through high school and a good portion of college. And so I like to say that my college career was very scenic because I flunked out and had to sit out for a year. And since I went to school out of state, from where I'm from, in order to lower the costs because I didn't have any scholarships. I had to gain residency in the state that the school was in. So I had to sit out for a year, gain residency and all that fun stuff, but y'all don't care about that. So during this time, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I have an uncle that worked at the university in the city where I live now, where I actually eventually went to school. And so I had access to a lot of things, even though I technically was not a student because I was sitting out, because I flunked out. And so one day I was in one of the libraries. I had my headphones plugged into the computer, and I was listening to some anime soundtrack on YouTube. And I look to the side, and this was like old school YouTube back in the day, back in like 2000. This was like 2005, 2006. So I look and I see like some thumbnails, and I see a thumbnail of a game show. And I knew it wasn't in Japanese because, let me go back a little bit, because at this point, when I was going to school, I started off at the community college and then I transferred over to the actual university. But when I was at the community college, I actually took a year of Japanese. So at this point, I knew what Japanese was, and I knew what the differences were between the alphabets. And so when I looked at this thumbnail of this game show, I looked and I knew that it was Korean. And so for some reason, out of curiosity, I clicked on it because I was like, what is this? So why is this popping up here when I'm not watching anything Korean? I'm listening to anime soundtracks. And so I click on it and I watch it. I don't know what's going on. Of course, don't know what they're saying. And I'm kind of like, okay. And so more and more Korean videos started popping up because I watched the one. And eventually I come across a music video of a song. And unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the song. I'll go back and figure it out and maybe post it here. I don't, but it was from a group called Shinhwa, and they were, at the time, I think they were pretty well established. I don't know if they're still together now or anything like that, but at the time, their 7th album was about to come out, and this was like the first music video from one of the songs on that album. And so I watched the music video and I'm like, oh, I actually really like this. Where can I go to listen to more of this album? And so this was before streaming. So I had to get creative in terms of like how to get access to Korean music back then. So I was going to all these shady sites, that was in all Korean or some other language, and just kind of guesstimate, what was what. And eventually I was able to listen to the rest of the album. Just perseverance, I guess. And so eventually I was like, I want to buy this. Where can I go to buy this? Because once again, there was no streaming at this time. So I found a website called yesasia.com. I don't know if it still exists. I would assume it would. But I mean, now, like if you want to listen to anything, really, you can just stream it. So I ended up ordering the CD off of this website. It comes like 2 or 3 weeks later because it actually shipped from Korea. So I paid a pretty hefty penny for that CD. So I think it was probably like $30 at the time. So I finally get the CD in. I like it. And I'm like, oh, I want more of this. And then slowly over time, I started discovering more and more artists at the time. So that's when I discovered who Wee Sung was. And that's when I discovered who Rain was. And Jang Woo Yuk and all these other people. Seven. And so I was buying all their albums, just one after the other. And so while I was sitting out for this year, waiting to be able to go back to school to finish my degree, I was starting to tap the surface of, Korean entertainment. And it started with the music. So did that, enjoyed it, kept listening to it. Wanted to order more, I would try to watch more videos, music videos on YouTube, discovering more artists, just trying to, satisfy my curiosity, so to speak, because I was kind of like, oh, this is pretty good. I like this. And at the time I was more, delving into the pop, but like some of it was more R&B-ish, but it wasn't like true R&B. It was more like pop blended with the R&B, and I was more gravitated towards the solo artists, so I really wasn't into the groups at the time. So the only group that I bought an album from was Shinhwa. So I'm going to stop it right here, and this is part 1. So part 2, I will go deeper into my college years with me getting into Korean culture and Korean entertainment. Thank you.